Good evening, everyone. I want to speak a little bit about the Parashat Korach, and if the time would allow, we'll maybe discuss some halachot that would pertain to the parasha as well. You know, Korach is one of the interesting personalities that is mentioned as an example of negativity in our Mishnayot and in the Chazal, in Midrashim, which really sources from the Chumash itself. A person that literally was self-destructive, one of the most successful individuals in the history of humanity, that literally his personality was the cause of his demise and his destruction, and basically killed himself deliberately with the revolt that he led against Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, when you think about Korach, you think about the Mishnah that says "Hakin'ah, hata'ava v'kavod, motziin et ha'adam min ha'olam." A person's covet and the love of respect and status could literally destroy a person, take a person out of this world. This is like a topic that really we deal with, and it's on our minds day in and day out. You know, making money, having a certain status, having success, having kavod and status is something that we all really deal with. Like Chachamim tell us, Gezel, easy money, getting high very quick in the levels of status and wealth is one of the top things, perhaps the top thing. Gezel v'arayot is the first thing that's a natural drive of a person to really attain in a fascinating way. So therefore it's important and it's fit, I believe, to speak about status, to speak about kavod, and to speak about money. Proper Torah view on wealth and money when it comes to the parasha of Korach. Now, I want to give you two examples, two stories, real stories that happened, to show you like a spectrum, how wide the spectrum could be when it comes to money, status, and kavod. Was one of the wealthiest men in 21st century. Was a man with the name of Adolf Merkel. He was a German fellow. He was the 94th wealthiest person in the world. He was worth over $12 billion. He was the wealthiest man in Germany. Now in year 2008, he basically bet against the stock market on Volkswagen. Was actually the car that he himself drove, and he basically bet negative that it's going to go down. He bet $1 billion against the market. Unbeknownst to him, that right before that, Porsche was planning to buy out the company of Volkswagen, and right shortly after his bet, they bought it, and the stocks not only didn't go down, but they went up, and overnight, basically, he lost $1 billion. Okay, so he still had over $11 billion, but what happened was he owed another $2 billion, and this is the crash of the market in 2008. No bank wanted to give loans to anyone. He applied to pay back this debts that he had. He got rejected. The applications didn't come back from many places, and so on and so forth. So therefore, he basically was, he lost $3 billion in the course of 1 year. So what did he do? On Monday, I think it was January 6th or 5th of 2009, beginning of 2009, one evening, 5 o'clock, he went and he committed suicide. He threw himself in front of a rail of train and he killed himself. Literally. The best part of the story is that 2 weeks later, the family was told they got an official letter that his loan was accepted, and they would give him $2 billion as a loan. Right? So you look at the story, you say, really? Like, seriously? A person that had a wealth that no one of us here would even have dreamt of. You can't even spend the money. He was in his 60s. He's an older man, a successful businessman, established personality, world renowned. He couldn't even spend the money for the rest of his life and his children's life if he wanted to. But the attachment to the kavod, to the status, and to the power that the money brought for him could not allow him to accept losing $2 or $3 billion, even though that really $1 billion of it was a loss, the other ones was loan, he could have made it back and so on. But he couldn't deal with failure in status, failure in his attachment to money and to kavod. This is one story, and many of us know people who, just recently names all the Shemot HaKadoshim of the actors and actresses that they committed suicide recently, right? People who are almost billionaires, they have everything that all the other people dream of: looks, status, popularity, right? Money, power, everything that they want, they have. And all of a sudden you hear they deliberately killed themselves with a note, with a letter. It's not just a happenstance, not something that was an accident. And that's the attachment that money could have to itself. On the other hand, I want to tell you a story that barely fits in the same world with the first story. In beginning of 1930s, there was a rabbi, Rabbi Kubrin, right, one of the rabbis of Rav Moshe Feinstein, actually in Europe, and he had a son that he sent to yeshiva. Reuben Yosef was his son. Kubrin, he went to yeshiva to learn out of town, so he was there for over a year. He comes back, and in yeshiva, for those of you who may not know, there's 3 different studying. You learn morning for a few hours, 4 or 5 hours, then the afternoon, and then at night. People learn with different people. One person, one chavruta, one partner in the morning, one partner in the afternoon, another one at night. This person learned with the same chavruta, with the same learning partner, morning, afternoon, and night, for over a year. And they were so close, they were even roommates with each other. So he comes back home, his father is the rabbi. He says, so how's it going? He says, I have a wonderful chavruta, and we've learned for past year and a half, 3 studying a day, and we're roommates. This is great. It's working out. Unbelievable. What's his name? He says, well, I never asked him. He says, what do you mean you never asked him? He said, I went there the first day in yeshiva. I asked who is available. I saw he was sitting and learning. I said, do you want to learn? Yes. We learned. It went great. You want to learn second seder? Yes. Night seder? Yes. Tomorrow. We never. So comes out, this Rav, the Reuben Yosef, later on became a Rosh Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. But who was that boy that he was learning with? It was none other than Rabbi Aaron Leib Steinman, which just passed away months ago. And he basically, at age 104, he was considered the indisputable Gadol Ador, the greatest, one of the greatest Jews that we have had in 20th and 21st century. And he lived in a way, I met him, he came to Baltimore, and I met with him. He ate for past 60, 70 years 50 grams of bread in the morning with a cup of milk or a bowl of yogurt, and the same exact thing at night. That's what he ate. Aside from Shabbat, this is what he ate for past 50, 60 years. Right? A simple man. His mattress that he sat on, he bought it, they said it in you could check it yourself on Wikipedia. It's not a Jewish source, right? Go on Wikipedia and search his name. As under personal, you could see the mattress he was sitting on, he bought in year 1950. For 50, 60 years years he had the same mattress. He lived the most simple, and all the billionaires of the world visited his house. Who do you go to when you want to get the bracha, when you're in that type of a status? You go to the biggest person. He was it. People would have written him checks of hundreds of thousands of dollars. He would go straight to tzedakah. He didn't need it. It's not that he didn't have it. He didn't need it. He was separate from the world that you have. I want to tell you a story. When he just got married and he was a part of a kollel, so the kollel has to have monthly fundraising. So they for 3 months they couldn't make the budget of the kollel. He didn't get a paycheck for 3 months. Then they worked hard, they got it, they made it up, the deficit. So they gave him the check for that month and 3 months worth of paycheck. So he looks at it, he says, "What is this?" He says, "We made it up for the past 3 months." He said, "I got through with him. I don't need it anymore. Just pay me for this month." This is a man that's totally separate from the love of status, love of kavod and money. Now, tonight the purpose is not to become like Rabbi Steinman. It's way over my head. Certainly, maybe people here are higher than me. But for me, I know for myself, it's way over my head, right? But to just know that there is such a thing in the world, that people who do things l'shem shamayim, people who do things not because of status and money and power and kavod, but people who do things because they're the right thing to do. And as long as I have for today, the same Hashem that gave it is going to be providing in future as well. So, you see, the world that we live in, like the Mesilat Yesharim writes, is not a place for ta'anug. Ramchal writes in the beginning of Mesilat Yesharim, in the first chapter, that the place of doing is this world. This is the place that you do mitzvot. The place to accept the reward is a different thing. Now this is something, one of my pet peeves that I say, and I surprise people many times with saying it, but I think the explanation would make up for it. I always tell people, there isn't such a thing in this world called real pleasure. There's no such a thing as real pleasure. What do I mean? Anything that me and you call fun or pleasure, the scientific explanation of it is escape from the norm. I'll prove it to you. You're tired, you want some time off, you go to Hawaii, you go to Big Bear, you go to Yosemite, wherever it is that you go. How many weeks can you stay there?
4 days maximum.
Everyone has their threshold. After 2-3 weeks, you become sick of it. You have to come back, right? No one from Miami comes to Miami or Hawaii to Hawaii for vacation. They come to Los Angeles. Los Angeles people go there. It's just change of the norm. The norm is something that makes a person tired. The best of the foods that you like, you love, right? How much of it can you eat? You eat it for 3, 4, 5 days, that's it, you get sick of it. Like the Pasuk says, right? A person gets sick of it. The ta'anug, something that essentially is good, essentially is a pleasure, you should not get sick of it. The more of it you have, the better it should be. No pleasure in this world is like that. This world is a place of working and pursuit of a reason and a goal in life that makes a person happy. The closest thing that you have to a real pleasure that you never get sick of it is children. You never get, they could drive you crazy, they could give you a hard time, not sleep at night. But you never get sick of your children. You always love them. Why is it? Because they become the mantra of your life.
They become a part of your life.
They become, you have invested your entire life. They become your biggest project in life. Right? You're dedicated to them. You pour in your money, your time, your effort, your talent, everything you've got, you pour into them. Then you have real pleasure. because it's not taking, but rather is detachment and is giving giving back to someone else, making a project that takes work, not just seeking pleasure and being attached to the thing. Now I want to ask two questions, which are very important, that you perhaps never have heard about Parashat Korach, right? First is Korach's name. How many people in Chumash they were called Korach? Does anyone know? Not one, two. And Korach was the second one. Our Korach was the second one. Who was the first Korach? Surprisingly, it was the grandson of Esav. Right? Elipaz had a son, Korach. The grandson of Esav was. So imagine, Korach's father, Yishar, had a baby boy. So 8th day Brit Milah, Yikare Shemo BeYisrael, Rasha Merusha, Korach. Right? Until then, Korach was a negative personality, the grandson of Esav Rasha. So who in their right mind would call their son Korach? I'll tell you a story. There was I used to learn with Rabbi Heinemann in his house privately for many years. So once he told me a story, we were speaking about Brit Milah. I happened to be a Mohel for many years. So we were discussing he's a Mohel, I was a Mohel. So we're discussing different things. So he said, you won't believe it. I had a Brit and the father stands there. When I say Kareh Shemo Israel, the father says Arizal. So I told him Arizal's name was Yitzchak. Yitzchak ben Shlomo Luria. He says, no, Arizal. Insisting in front of everyone on the Teva. So Arizal. So he says, during the Suda, I went to him, I said, you're going to embarrass your son. People are going to, Arizal means he's dead. Right? Arizichlor Ivracha. So they had to change their name. Now imagine the father of Korach standing there, Israel Korach. Who was Korach? Rasha Merusha. Who in the world would call their son, like imagine nowadays someone would call their son Hitler, right? Israel. How odd is that? That's first. Second question that you probably never heard is the famous story of this parasha that everyone speaks about, that the world revolves around ladies, right? They tell ladies that make them very happy, right? Everything in the world revolves around ladies. How so? You see the two personalities, the secret of Parashat Korach, both in positive way and in negative way, is about ladies. How so? Korach had three partners. Datan and Aviram, everyone knows, but there was a third one. The third one was On ben Pelet. On ben Pelet was their four partners. It was Korach, Datan, Aviram, and On ben Pelet. So what happened to On ben Pelet? He came home, and his wife said, "What is this that you're doing?" He said, "We're rebelling against Moshe. He has taken everything for himself, and we're rebelling against him." So his wife tells him, says, wait a second, what do you get out of this? If Moshe is the leader, you're the servant. And if Korach is the leader, you're weiter the servant. So what's in it for you? She was wise, she was smart. She knew not to argue with him. She just said, like, what's going to change for you? Who cares who is the CEO of the company? You're the accountant. So he said, you're right. What do I do now? I'm embarrassed. They're my friends. We made a promise. He says, no worries. She brought the best wine from who knows how many years ago, gave him kebab and wine, put him to sleep. And come Korach and Datan and Aviram, she goes by the door of the tent, by the opening of the tent, she opens her hair, she knows all of these people are tzaddikim, chas v'shalom, they're not going to look at someone that's not properly dressed. They come, they see this is it, they go. Meanwhile, he's sleeping. Korach, Datan, and Aviram, they all are swallowed in the ground. So this is story one. So he was saved because of his wife. And Korach himself was destroyed, Chachamim tell us, because of his wife. What happened? He comes home. His wife says, look at you. What are you good for? He says, what do you mean? I'm carrying the Aron, this. I said, no, look, Moshe Rabbeinu is the king. His brother is the Kohen Gadol. What did they give you? They shaved you off, right? Leviim, the Torah says, or the inauguration of the Mishkan with the Leviim entailed that they had to shave their head off and any hair on their body, their eyebrows and everything. He says, look at you, made you look like a clown, and he himself is the king. So she basically store up the emotions of her husband, especially when it came to the hair and to the looks and so on, and got him to agree to actually go and revolt against Moshe Rabbeinu. Now this story everyone knows. The question is, perhaps none of you have ever paid attention that both accounts revolve around hair. Korach's wife destroyed Korach with the making fun of the shaving of the hair, and at the same time, the wife of Ben Peled saved his life with the hair that was exposed. So we're going to try to answer this tonight, which really brings the point that we started with. You see, hair is the only thing that's attached to a person, but it's really extra. It's external. You cut it off, right? It grows, you cut it off. It's an external, extra thing that's attached to you. And in the writings of the Mekubalim, the assets of a person, the physical aspect of the world, is exemplified through hair. So when you have someone that shaves their hair, which according to the Mekubalim, the hair of the head at least is midat adin, right? Is the judgment? It's considered negativity, so to speak. So that's the aspect of the extras, the things that a person has, which is not really part of him, but it's attached to him. We have an innate attachment to all the things that we own, all the things that we have, and all the things that we deal with in the physical world. So that is having hair and also shaving it off. That means you're basically getting rid of that thing. So Hashem told the Leviim, who are supposed to be dedicated to the service of Beit HaMikdash, Leviim were the only tribe that they did not own any land. They didn't have any real estate. Hashem says in the Torah, they don't have chelek v'nachala. They don't have a part of Eretz Yisrael. Why? Hashem hu nachalato. They have to be focused on, they're supported very highly with the rest of Klal Yisrael. Everyone has to give them a maaser, 1/10 when they tithe their money and their produce. It really goes all over to the Leviim. Why? Because but at the same time, that attachment to the land, Hashem does not want them to have. So here is really the message. The message is, Hashem is saying, Korach was a person that Korach is read in Hebrew what again? Kuf Resh Chet. You could read it also what? Kereach. Kereach means what? Bold. Someone that doesn't have hair. So his challenge was, he was too attached to his physical aspect of life. And Hashem said, your name says what you are. You have to work on shaving off that physicality, the love of gashmiut, of money and status and kavod. And on the other hand, Ben Pelet's wife, she showed him that his challenge was, he was becoming too attached to the money and he had to shed it off. So that really is the deeper meaning behind the fact that Korach was called after the son of Esav, because he came to this world with the innate Yetzer Hara for pursuit of negativity, of physicality. Hashem told him, says, your name, your essence is this challenge. This is the only challenge that you got to work on. Which actually ended up being his point of failure and doom. At the same time, Ben Peled really was saved by his wife through the same aspect of the wife showing him, says, you're not attached to this. Whether Moshe Rabbeinu wins or Korach wins, your attachment is not going to make a difference in your life. And by detaching her husband from that attachment to the status, she was able to save the life of her husband, Ben Peled. That's very interesting. in the writings of Ari Kadosh, every single month of the year has a combination of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the name of the special name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. You could combine it in different ways. Yud Kei Vav Kei is the straight way of reading it. You could keep the first one and switch around the second, third, and fourth, and you could have many combinations of the name of Hashem. So according to Kabbalah,
in order to continue the auction,
each one of the months have a combination of Hashem's name. So for instance, what's Nisan?
what did they do?
Nisan, which is the Chodesh of Geula, the month of redemption, is exact Yud Kei Vav Kei straight. Writes the Arizal. That's Yishem Hashem Mevorach Mata V'ad Olam. What's the pasuk for it? Ismechu Hashamayim v'tagel haaretz. The first word, the first letter of each one of the words, Ismechu Hashamayim v'tagel haaretz, is Yud Kei Vav Kei. Right? That's the month of Ismechu Hashamayim, Simcha v'tagel haaretz. It's a month of happiness. When the name of Hashem is straight, it's a month of happiness. Now, what is they asked Ari Kadosh, what is the abbreviation of Yud Kei Vav Kei for the month of Tammuz? We're standing Erev Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, basically entering the month of Tammuz, which is the beginning of destruction, right? Tammuz and Av are the 2 months that are not good for us, basically. It's not a good mazal. So what is the essence of Tammuz, which is followed by Av? Ari Kadosh said is exactly the opposite of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Instead of having Yud Kei Vav Kei, you have Hey, and then Vav, and then Hey, and then Yud. The opposite way of the reading is exactly the opposite. And what's the pasuk for it, says the Arizal? The pasuk that Haman said. What did Haman say? When he was in the height of his rage against Mordechai, when the king had given him everything, and the Queen Esther had invited him for the first time to the private party with Achashverosh, he comes out, and Mordechai is sitting there learning, does not make a flinch, does not make a move. So Haman says what? V'chol ze einenu shovel. He comes home, he tells Zeresh, his wife, he says, I have billions of dollars, I have all the power and the status. There was a gezerah from the king, there was a decree from Achashverosh that whenever Haman went anywhere, everyone had to bow to him. So the whole world bowed down to Haman, aside from one person. He had every single thing that you can imagine in the world, aside from one thing he didn't have. And that was, he wanted Mordechai to bow down to him, and he wouldn't budge. So he says, I have all of these things to his wife. He says, all of this is worth nothing whenever I see Haman, and whenever I see Mordechai rather, and he does not bow to me. So says the Arizal, look at the last letters of Ze Einenu Shoveli. Is Hey, Vav, Hey, Yud. That becomes the Chodesh of Tammuz, he writes. The personality of Haman is the same exact thing as the personality of Korach. A man that was the most successful man in the world. He was more powerful in many ways than Achashverosh himself. He had the stamp. Any stamp anything he wanted to write, any legislation or anything, any decree, he could just stamp it and it would be done. 1, 2, 3. And yet, Hakin'ah v'hata'ava v'hakavod, the rotten gava, the rotten pride and kin'ah that he had, that he couldn't tolerate, destroyed his life literally from this planet of Earth. And that exactly is the lesson of Korach. Korach was a man of power. He had everything that he could imagine in the world. But nevertheless, what happened with him?
You never want to get it from a second dip.
Because of one thing that he couldn't get, and that was Moshe Rabbeinu's kingdom. He had billions of dollars. The Gemara says 300 mules carried just the keys of his treasures. That's how much money he had. Imagine a billionaire par excellence. He had everything, and in the service of the Beit HaMikdash, he was doing something very important. He was from the top 10 jobs in the Beit HaMikdash.
operate from a
It's carrying the Aron. It's not a small thing. Nevertheless,
From a surgeon?
carrying the Klei Kodesh. Nevertheless,
Operating from a surgeon who's
he lost all of it because he couldn't tolerate that someone was a little bit higher than him.
surgery.
Now you see, his name is mentioned in the Mishnah work as well. When Chachamim tell us about machloket, about disputes, they say there are two different types of disputes. There is something we call machloket l'shem shamayim, a machloket that is for sake of heaven, and there is something that's machloket shelo l'shem shamayim, a debate, a dispute, an argument that's not for the sake of heaven. And Chachamim give us an example. What is an example of machloket that's l'shem? The Mishnah says it's Korach va'adato. It's the machloket of Korach and his people, his partners, with whom it doesn't say. Why? Because machloket shel Hashem shamayim is all about me. I'm not interested to see what. It's irrelevant who is on the other side. Because I'm not interested to hear them out. I'm just interested to talk out my mind and say whatever I want to say, and then just leave. When Moshe Rabbeinu, with his humility, goes to Korach and to Datan and Aviram, they basically totally reject him. They're not even willing to hear Moshe Rabbeinu out. That's machloket Korach va'adato. And l'shem sham. Why does it say l'shem shamayim? I once heard a Hasidic, it's not really a real thing. It's Hasidic pshat, but it's cute at the same time. A homiletic pshat, a homiletic explanation that shamayim is consists of esh and mayim. That's what shamayim means, right? Shamayim is esh and mayim. Mayim is midat harachamim. Mayim is something that is chesed. And esh, fire, is what? It's midat adin. So l'shem shamayim, shamayim, how many letters of esh is in shamayim? Only one. Only the shin. How many letters of mayim you have in shamayim? 3. All of it. Full mayim. Shamayim. So it's really more of chesed, more I'm listening, I'm out there to give than I'm there to take. But at the same time, the machloket that's not the Shem Shamayim, that din is first, that I'm focused on taking, on being a self-centered human being, that becomes like Korach and Adato. So Hillel and Shammai, each one of them heard the other one. The Gemara says, why is halacha like Hillel always? When you have a machloket of Hillel and Shammai, always halacha is like Hillel. There are certain exceptions that the Gemara calls that because of they were majority, halacha became like Bet Shammai. But normally speaking, the Gemara says there was a heavenly voice that decreed halacha is like Bet Hillel. Why is that? The Gemara says because Bet Hillel always first heard what Shammai had to say. Whenever they published their statement, they first would say, our opponent Shammai says the following, and this is how it makes sense, and this is the support for it, and this is this. They would explain it as though it was their own idea. And then they would say, but we have this and this and this problems with it, so thus we have to disagree. The fact that the person in life is focused on others, focused on hearing out other people, is the secret of interpersonal relationship. To have success in interpersonal relationship, that's really from not being like Korach v'Adato. And there's a pasuk in the Torah, which is one of the mitzvot. Lo yeh kekorach v'adato. A person shall not become like Korach and his people, which is a mitzvah, a negative mitzvah in the Torah. That the person should not be a self-centered individual that causes a machloket shelo l'shem shamayim. So that's really the core of the parasha of Korach. So let us all remember, before we go to a few minutes of halacha, just a quick review of what we said. Let us remember the issue of the hair, the attachment to this world, how a person could literally become addicted to money. how you could have $12 billion and you could commit suicide because you lost a little bit of it at the age 67 or whatever, like this fellow Adolf Merkel, and how a person at the same time could become like Rabbi Steinman, totally focused on life at the age 104, focused on helping others and using the minimum, having the minimum attachment to the world and the physical aspects of this world. And at the same time, let us remember that machloket shelel Hashem shamayim, like Korach, is when a person is self-centered, thinking about himself, and Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai's success was because each one of them thought about the other one first, even though that they were arguing. Now, the machloket and being like Korach has a halachic aspect attached to it as well. You see, Korach did not just destroy himself, but he got many other people to revolt against Moshe Rabbeinu. 250 people died because of Korach. Aside from Korach and Datan and Aviram and their immediate family who were swallowed up in the ground, there were 250 other people who basically died with fire the day after, the day that they brought the Ketoret, right after the story, the incident with Korach, with fire in front of Hashem. These people, the Midrash tells us, the Gemara brings, they were all convinced by Korach to rebel against Moshe Rabbeinu. So on that, there is a mitzvah, negative mitzvah in the Torah, in Vayikra in chapter 19, Difne iver lo titen michshol. If you make someone else sin, it's written on you as well. It's a negative commandment not to put in a stumbling block, not to get someone else or to allow someone else to make someone else sin. And this is a full-fledged negative commandment. The Gemara, Milchat Chinuch, actually discusses, this is interesting, based on Rishonim, in Mitzvah 232, I believe it is, Milchat Chinuch brings that if you actually put a stumbling block in front of a blind person, you may not be in transgression of this Avera. Although the Pasuk says, don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind man, nevertheless, if you actually do that, that's not necessarily a transgression of the Torah. Rather, like the Gemara Darshins in Torah Sheba'al Peh explains to us, it's making someone sin and do something, giving an eitzah she'eino hogenet, giving a bad advice to make someone go the wrong path in life, both spiritually or physically. That becomes the main explanation of this negative mitzvah.
It's not interesting.
Now, the Gemara tells us in Masechet Avodah Zarah how the parameters of this Avera is. If a person wants to do a Nazir, someone that has made a neder not to drink wine or use anything that's derivative of wine, the Gemara says if he wants to drink wine and he does not have access to wine, he's on one side of the river, you're on the other side of the river, and there's no way for him to access the wine, and you give it to him, then you're in transgression of this Avera. To bring it more alive for nowadays, for instance, a question. Someone wants to eat a non-kosher food. They can't reach it because they can't drive to go buy it. Right? They say, I've paid with credit card. Can you go pick up my cheeseburger from McDonald's and bring it for me? Right? So if you do it, you're in transgression of lifnei iver lo titen michshol if they had no way of getting this cheese sandwich, this cheeseburger. Right? Or how about inviting someone to your house that you know it's not going to make brachot. You're going to give them food, you're going to just eat it without netilat yadayim, without washing, without saying a bracha, or inviting them on Shabbat and they're going to drive to your house. Is that considered lifnei iver lo titen michshol? All of these scenarios that we deal with in daily life, whether they're mutar or not, really depends and hinges on this Gemara in Avodah Zarah on page 6. Now the Gemara says you have to differentiate between the scenario that we mentioned, that the guy that's Nazir, that can't have wine, is on the other side of the river, there's no bridge, and you have to toss it over basically to them to make it available for them. The Gemara says if it's in the same side of the river, he may as well get up and walk and take the bottle of wine himself. He doesn't really need you, but he's asking for your assistance. Then the Gemara says you're not in transgression of Lifnei Iver Lo Titen Mechshol. If the guy in our other case, if the guy could just drop in himself and take his sandwich from McDonald's, but he's asking you for a favor, and if you don't do it, he's going to do it himself, he's going to have someone else do it for him, then you're not in transgression of this Avera of Lifnei Iver Lo Titen Mechshol. But nevertheless, it's still a Avera de Rabbanan, it's still a rabbinic transgression, something that we call Mesayea Bidei Ovrei Avera. Is helping someone do an Avera. You're becoming a conduit to facilitate for someone else, to facilitate someone doing an Avera. So that's a rabbinic issue, rabbinic prohibition called Mesayea Bidei Ovrei Avera. Now this by itself has its limitations. For instance, we just asked the question, you have, let's say, a vending machine, or for that matter, you have a website that you're selling things online. It could be Amazon, it could be your own private website and company, and you're selling retail, wholesale, and the website could be accessed, or the vending machine could be accessed throughout the week, even on Shabbat. Do you have to really close your website on Shabbat when you know there are going to be, inevitably, some Jews that are going to buy on Shabbat, shop on Shabbat from your website? No. Is that mutar or is that asur? There are certain websites, right, FYI, that they're closed on Shabbat, right? Art Scroll website is closed on Shabbat, right? Zundelberman books are closed on Shabbat. There are certain websites that are closed on Shabbat. Nevertheless, halachically speaking, it's still mutar to have them on and available and operational on Shabbat. Why is that? So here is the catch. There is a machloket between the achronim, the halachic authorities of recent generations, whether or not the isur of Mesayea, the prohibition of helping, giving a hand, so to speak, to someone that without you also could do the Avera, whether or not that's asur when talking about non-religious Jews. So famously, the Shach Siftei Kohen writes that if you have a non-religious, non-affiliated Jew, and the isur that he wants to do, the prohibition that he wants to transgress, could be done without you as well. He could do it himself. He doesn't need you. Then if you assist him, it's not asur. This is what the Shach says. Now, the way Shach is understood by many is the following: that a person that is not Shomer Shabbat, is not totally not observant, is considered in some level not a full Jew. So therefore, you have an obligation to see to it that a Jew does not do an Avera. But this person is less of that status, so therefore is not Asur. So according to this, nowadays, almost no one falls under that category. Because nowadays, even people, I always say, we have observant Jews, especially in our community, the Sfaradim, we have observant Jews, and we have not yet observant Jews, right? We don't have people who are mumarim. There's no one that I'm yet to see someone that is a rebellious Jew. We have people who are uneducated. We call it in halachic terminology, tinok shenishba. It means in Russian army, in the time of the Tsar, they used to take the Jews as teenagers to draft into the army. Soon enough, they realized that this ain't gonna work, right? It ain't gonna work because these people are so dedicated to religion. So it's not gonna work. So they started drafting them at age, basically kidnapping them at age 5. This way they wouldn't remember anything. They would raise them for a few years by the Russian non-Jews, and then it would be 20 years worth of training and army and so on and so forth. By the time they came out, they were more non-Jew than all the non-Jews, right? So a person like that, what do you expect from them? It's tinok shenishba. So for all practical purposes, a person that has not have proper education, right, has not grown up in a community with religious values, also they don't think is so important, right? They don't think is necessarily like the end of the world if they do Chilul Shabbat or anything else. Right? So therefore, it's important to note that according to the Shach nowadays, you ought to deal with all the Jews as if they have full-fledged status of a religious Jew. But then there is another understanding. The Gulmer Baba, the Nodab Yehuda says, and we'll finish with this. The Nodab Yehuda says that a person that deliberately wants to do an avera, and he could do it without you. He wants to do avera b'mezid. He doesn't care. He knows it's asur to do it, and he wants to do it nevertheless. And you're not making impossible to do it. He could do it without you. Says in that case, you have no obligation to stop him from. It's not asur. If you assist him, it's not misayah bido over avera. Because he's doing it deliberately, knowing that's asur, and he's going to do it anyways. So according to that, again, this is a matter of debate. Magen Avraham in 163 disagrees with this, and so on. But nevertheless, a person that deliberately wants to do Chilul Shabbat is not necessarily asur. And on top of that, there is a psak from Rav Shlomo Miller and Rabbi Yashiv that if you have an operation that the majority of your customers are non-Jews, you may have a mixture of a minority, small minority of Jews that they also would shop from your website or from your vending machines and so on. Then you're allowed to rely on the above mentioned heter, and you don't have to be concerned necessarily about the minority that the Mishnah. So therefore, many people, halachically speaking, you're allowed to have your websites open. It's not considered assisting people with avera necessarily. That isura mesayah bido over avera. There are many very complexities in this sugya as well, which really deserves its own talk, deserves its own shiur, is really beyond the scope of a few minutes talk that we have tonight. But Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll continue these topics in the days to come. Chazak u'baruch.